Dad, don't hang up. There's blood everywhere. Dad? Say something. I can't do this out here by myself.
Tell me the name of the road you're on. Say it slow for me.
It's the county road past the grain elevator, the one we take to Otway.
Is the man on the ground still moving?
He's making a sound. There's blood on the door and I can't look at him.
Silas, are you hurt anywhere? Tell me where you are.
I'm not hurt. Dad, please don't leave me out here.
Emmett lowered the phone the way a man lowers something he has just realized is loaded. The call was still running. The numbers on it were still counting up. 90 seconds earlier, he had been sitting at his kitchen table with the ringer on, the way he had sat every night for 4 years. He had heard his boy say there was a man down on the road. He had heard him say there was blood on the door. He had come up out of that chair so fast his hip caught the shelf beside the kitchen door. 3 glass jars had gone over and rolled. One had cracked against the baseboard and let out a slow spill of water across the floor. He had gotten one boot on standing up with a hand on the counter. He had not turned on a single light. The clock on the stove had read 1:52 in the morning. There had been something underneath the voice, too. Emmett heard it the way he heard things for a living. A second sound riding under the first one, faint and regular and low. He had no name for it and no room in his head to go looking for one. Now he stood in his son's doorway with a live call in his hand and a sleeping boy 11 feet in front of him. "Dad, you're scaring me. Don't leave me out here." He hung up. He stood in the dark hallway with the phone still warm and did not go into the room. He had just understood something he did not have a word for yet. He had been kept. For 11 minutes, somebody had held a man still in his own kitchen. He called the number back, and it rang once and died. He sat down on the top step in one boot and opened his banking application, because it was the only thing left he could think of to do. 3 transfers. All of them after 1:52. $28,000, $33,000, $25,000. $86,000 gone in the time it takes to boil a pot of water. His wife's insurance. His son's college. The money he ran his trucks on. And beside each line, in gray letters that did not shake or apologize, the same 3 words. Verified by owner. Headlights came up the drive at 2:30. Emmett was still on the step when he heard the storm door. Then boots crossing his kitchen tile without a knock. Then a young man's voice calling up the stairs with exactly the right amount of worry in it. "Uncle Emmett, your light's off and your door's unlocked. Is everything all right in here?" Brody Rasmussen was 24 years old. He set a laptop bag on the kitchen table and took in the water on the floor and the jars lying on their sides. Then he pulled out a chair before anybody had asked him to sit down. "Somebody called this house at 1:52 using my son's voice." Okay, hang on. Sit down a second, you're white as a sheet." "He is upstairs asleep, Brody. I had him in my ear and I was looking straight at him." "Give me the phone. Let me pull the incoming number before it drops off the tower." Brody took the phone out of his uncle's hand. He did not ask for it twice, and he did not wait for it to be offered. He plugged it into the laptop and turned the screen away with a small polite motion of his shoulder. For about 40 seconds, the only sound in that house was a young man typing. Emmett put 2 fingers on his nephew's wrist. Turn the screen back around. There's nothing on it to see. It's a spoof number, and it's routed through 4 countries. "There was a call log on that phone 11 minutes ago. I watched it counting, and it's gone now. And that's exactly how you know these people are professionals. They wipe the trail on the way out." He said it kindly. He said it while sliding the phone back across the table, screen down, the way you hand a man his keys after he has had too much to drink. Behind him, along the wall above the counter, stood 200 and some glass jars in 5 rows. Every well Emmett Pruitt had ever finished. Each one held water and a strip of masking tape, and on the tape a family name and a date in grease pencil. Brody Rasmussen had eaten his supper under that shelf for 4 years of his childhood. He had never once looked up at it, and he did not look up at it now. Here's the thing a stranger would need to know about that kitchen table and that ringer. 4 years earlier, Emmett had been at the bottom of a job in Otway County with no signal at all. His wife, Noreen, died in their front room that afternoon. The phone rang out in a truck he could not hear. He learned it 2 hours later, standing in a gas station holding a receipt for $40 of diesel. Since that night, he had never turned his ringer off. He had never let a call go to voicemail. Everyone in Fenmore Springs knew it about him. The ones who loved him thought it was sad. One person who had once slept in the room behind his kitchen thought it was useful. Meridian Plains Credit Union opened at 9, and Emmett was at the glass with Silas beside him at 10 minutes before. The branch manager was a careful woman named Dell Fanning who had known Noreen from the school board and who used a soft voice for bad news. She brought them into an office with 2 chairs and pulled the transactions onto her monitor. Then she turned it partway toward them. That is what people do when they have already decided what they're going to say. I want to be honest with you about where this stands, Mr. Pruitt. I want the money back. That's where it stands. The transfers were authorized. I want you to understand what that word means here. It means somebody stole it. It means our system was given the right credentials by an owner of the account. My son is asleep at 1 in the morning. My son was in his bed. Your son is a joint owner with right of survivorship. You added him in March. The room got a little smaller. Emmett remembered the March afternoon the way you remember a good day, which is badly and in pieces. He had brought Silas in on a Tuesday after school. He had said a sentence to the woman at the desk that he had been carrying around for 4 years. If anything ever happens to me, he does not get locked out the way I got locked out. He's 16. There's no minimum age for a joint owner in Kansas, sir. You signed for it. And when a joint owner authorizes a transfer, the credit union has no legal basis to refuse him. He didn't authorize anything. The transfers were confirmed by voice on our automated line. All 3 of them. Silas had not said one word since the parking lot. He was a tall, thin boy who kept his hands in his sleeves. He had learned early that a room full of adults will fill any silence you leave. So he left them. He looked at the monitor and then at the side of his father's face. That's not him. Sir, I'm not accusing your son of anything. I'm telling you what our records show. You've got a recording of it? We retain the authorization audio for 90 days. Then play it. She did not want to. She did it anyway because she had known Noreen and because she could feel what was sitting in the chair beside him. It came out of a small speaker on her desk, thin and flattened the way phone audio is. It was a boy's voice saying a string of confirmations. Clean and even and quick, one after another with no gap anywhere. Emmett had spent 16 years listening to his son start sentences. He knew what the beginning of a word cost that boy. He knew the shape of the pause the way a man knows the sound of his own truck. There was no pause anywhere in it. That's my voice. Silas. That's my voice, Dad. That's exactly my voice. They sat in the parking lot afterward for a long time without the engine on. Emmett could not make himself look right at his son. He knew it, and he knew the boy knew it. Both of those things happened inside of about 4 seconds. Neither of them ever fully went away. You think it was me? No. You waited before you said no. I waited because I was doing arithmetic. Not because I was doing arithmetic on you. Everybody in there thought it was me. Everybody in there is going to be wrong about a lot of things before this is over. Emmett started the truck. Then he shut it off again because there was a thing he needed to say and he was not going to say it while driving. When I put a hole down, the ground lies to me. Every single time. A dry hole and a good will sound almost the same on the way down. Dad, let me get there. Rock sounds like water. Air pocket sounds like water. If I trusted my ears, I'd have been out of business at 25. So I don't. You don't trust the sound. You trust the sample. I bring a jar up and I look at what's in it. There's no jar for this. Then we're going to go find one. The sheriff's office took the report at 3 that afternoon. A deputy typed while Emmett talked and asked twice how to spell Pruitt. At the end, he read back a summary. In it, the word alleged appeared 4 times and the phrase joint account holder appeared twice. Sir, I'll be straight with you. This is going to land in the county attorney's lap, and it's going to look like a family financial dispute. There's no dispute. There's a hole. You added him to the account. He's got authority, and the money went to an account we can't touch by dinner time. I'll file it. I'm telling you what it's going to look like. That night, Brody came by with a bag of food nobody ate, and sat at the kitchen table, and was tremendously helpful. He offered to call the credit union himself in the morning. He offered to write it up for the community page so people in the county would be careful. He offered, twice, to lend his uncle $4,000 out of his own savings. When Emmett said no, he looked truly hurt about it. Part of that was real. That is the thing about Brody Rasmussen that took the longest to understand. Around 10 o'clock, he said the sentence that Emmett would take apart for the next 3 weeks. Whoever it was, they had to get his voice from somewhere. That's the part I can't figure. It's not like Silas talks. Silas was on the stairs behind him. He had come down for water and stopped. You filmed me. What? You filmed me in May. At the school. The kitchen went the way a kitchen goes. Brody turned around in his chair with his face doing exactly the right thing. Surprise, then hurt. Then the small, brave smile of a young man deciding to be gracious about an accusation from a child. Silas, that was your graduation. Your dad asked me to film it. I asked you to film it. That's what I said, Uncle Emmett. But Emmett was already standing and already walking to the laptop bag on the table. He was already saying a thing he had no evidence for. He would not be able to prove it for 11 more days. Show me the video. There were 39,000 views on it. That was the number that made Emmett sit down. The Fenmore Now page had been putting up the same things for 6 years. Church suppers, road closures, the obituary for anybody who died in Bickham County, the girls' basketball team, the fair. And in the middle of May, a post with a red heart on it. It had gone further than anything the page had ever run. A whole county had decided at the same time that it wanted to watch a boy who could not talk stand up and talk. 92 seconds. The gym at Fenmore Springs High School. Silas Pruitt at a microphone and a blue shirt, finishing 6 years of speech therapy. He was reading a page he had written himself. It was about what it is like to know a word and not be able to spend it. 92 seconds and he did not stumble once. Emmett watched it 4 times with the sound up. Then he watched it with his eyes shut, which is how he listens to anything that matters. That's every sound in the language, he said. That's my boy's voice with nothing in the way of it. That's the only recording like that on this earth. Brody had gone quiet in the doorway with his keys in his hand, and he said the thing that a good nephew says. Uncle Emmett, 39,000 people have seen that. I know. Anybody could have taken it. That's what I'm telling you. Anybody in the world. I know that too. And that was true. And it was the truest thing anyone said in that house all week, and it would be the exact thing that hanged him. The speech therapist for the Fenmore Springs School District worked out of a converted storage room off the gymnasium, behind a door with a paper sign taped to it. Her name was Loretta Bramhall, and she was 55 years old. She had been a contract employee for 19 years, which meant that in 19 years, nobody had ever put her name on the building directory. Emmett came on a Thursday during her lunch. She had a folding table, 2 chairs, a rack of laminated cards, and a shelf of gray plastic cases going back further than the shelf really wanted to. Mrs. Bramhall, I need to ask you something that's going to sound strange. You're Silas's father. Nothing about that boy has ever sounded strange to me. Somebody used his voice to take money out of my account. She put down her sandwich. She did not say anything about the police or the bank or how awful. Emmett noticed it. Later, he would understand that she had been waiting 19 years for somebody to walk in and need what was on that shelf. Used it how? Called a bank line and said the words, clean, no stop anywhere in it. Clean, not one hitch. Loretta Bramhall got up and pulled a case off the shelf, and then another one. She kept going until there were 6 of them stacked on the folding table. I record every session. I have recorded every session I have ever run in this district because when you work out of a closet, you learn to keep proof of what you do. That is 6 years of your son. That is 190-some sessions. Ma'am, I don't need 6 years. I need one thing. You need one thing. I am going to give you the one thing, and then I am going to give you the 6 years. A lawyer is going to want them. She sat down and folded her hands. Mr. Pruitt, do you know what your son actually has? He stutters. He has a severe developmental disfluency with a specific and consistent locus, which means the trouble is not random. It lives in the same place every time. Plosives at the front of a word under emotional load. Do you know what a plosive is? No. It is a sound you have to stop the air to make, BPD, and the higher the stakes get, the harder that stop gets to release. She looked at him. Mr. Pruitt, when your son is frightened, he cannot start a word with a D. Not sometimes, not usually, he cannot. Emmett sat very still in a plastic chair in a storage room. He said, Dad. He said, what? On the phone, at 1:52 in the morning. The first thing that voice said to me was, Dad, don't hang up. And it came out clean, and it came out first try. I have waited on that word every day of that boy's life since he was 2 years old. I did not think about it for 1 second. I was busy being his father. Loretta Bramhall put her hand flat on the top of the stack of cases. Then you already have your jar, she said. In 16 years, at the start of a frightened sentence that has never once happened. It is not unlikely. In a child with his profile, it is clinically impossible. I will say that under oath in any room in this state. The thing under the voice took another 11 days. Emmett listened to the credit union authorization audio 100 times on a phone speaker in a truck cab. He heard it every time and could not catch it. It was the way you cannot catch a smell by walking toward it. He listened at the shop. He listened at the bottom of a rig hole in Otway County with the compressor off and the whole prairie shut up around him. It was under the boy's voice, and it was in the graduation video too. And it was faint, and it was regular, and it was the same in both. He finally got it at 4 in the morning on a Sunday, sitting on the tailgate. He stopped trying to hear it as a sound. He started trying to hear it as a place. It was the bell. Every school in Bickham County ran the same period bell, a flat electronic double tone. In the gym, it came through a horn mounted high on the wall above the doors, and it bounced. Emmett had sat in that gym for 100 basketball games. He knew that bounce the way he knew the ring of a drill string hitting shale. He drove home and pulled up the Fenmore Now video and watched the whole 92 seconds with his eyes shut. The bell was not in it. He watched it again. He watched it 11 times. The video started on Silas already at the microphone, already mid-breath, and it ended on applause cut short. It was clean. It was well made. It had been trimmed at both ends by somebody who cared about how it looked. And the audio that had emptied his account had a bell in it that the public video did not contain. He called the school and asked the athletic director what time the bell ran on a half-day in May. Then he sat down with a pencil, which is not something he was good at, and he wrote out one sentence and looked at it for a long while. Whoever built that voice did not build it from the video that 39,000 people saw. They built it from the file it was cut out of. He took that sentence to the Bickham County Sheriff's Office and asked for the detective whose name was on the second page of his report. Marlene Duffy was 44 and had been in that office for 16 years and had a way of listening that made people talk too fast. Emmett did not talk fast. He put a phone on her desk, played her 11 seconds twice, and then played her the same 11 seconds of the public video and said nothing at all. "I'm not hearing it. Shut your eyes." She shut her eyes, mostly to be polite. Then she opened them. "Play that again." He played it again. "That's the period bell. That's the period bell. And it's not in the one that's on the internet." "No, ma'am, it's not." Detective Duffy leaned back in her chair and looked at the ceiling for a while. When she came back down, her face had changed. It changes that way when a thing stops being a nuisance and starts being a case. "Mr. Pruitt, do you understand what you just did to your suspect pool? I've got an idea. 39,000 people could have taken that video. About 4 people on Earth ever had the raw file." She was already pulling a legal pad over. "Who shot it?" "My nephew." She wrote it down and then stopped writing and looked up. "Say that again slower." "I'm my sister's boy, Brody Rasmussen. He lived in my house from 9 to 13. He runs the county page. He set up the phone plan my family is on. He was standing in my kitchen half an hour after it happened." "Half an hour. 15 minutes, near enough. He took the phone out of my hand and told me the log was gone." Duffy set the pen down. "I need you to not talk to him about any of this. Can you do that? He eats at my table twice a week." "Then keep eating. If you have ever handed your phone to the relative who is good with all of it, stop here for a second and think about that." It was Duffy who found Perce Whitlow, and it was Perce Whitlow who turned the whole thing over. He was 70 years old and farmed north of the Springs, and he had lost his wife the winter before. In the second week of the summer, somebody took $14,000 out of his savings. They called the bank and answered the security questions in his own voice. He had reported it. It had been filed. He had accepted in the quiet way of a man who has accepted several things that he had been careless somehow and that it was gone. Emmett sat in Perce Whitlow's kitchen with Duffy and listened to him tell it, and at the end of it he asked one question. "Mr. Whitlow, did anybody ever record you? Sit you down and record you talking?" "Well, sure. The young fella did that piece on me." "What piece?" "Voices of Fenmore." The old man got up and found his tablet and worked at it slowly. "He come out here in the spring with a microphone and set it on the table right about where your hand is. He asked me about my folks and the hail in '53 and how me and Ida met at the roller rink in Otway. Talked near 40 minutes. He was real interested." The page had run 11 of them by then. 11 people. All of them over 65, all of them living alone. Every one of them sat down at their own kitchen table in front of a good microphone for 30 and 40 minutes. Every one of them was asked open questions by a polite young man who wanted to preserve the history of Bickham County before it was gone. Duffy pulled the county fraud reports for 6 weeks. 9 of the 11 had lost money. It was not a history project. It was a harvest, and the whole county had thanked him for doing it. If this is landing on you, send it to the one person in your family who hands their phone to somebody else. That is who this was built for. The federal side came in on a Tuesday in the shape of a tired man named Corwin Blaisdell. He worked financial crimes out of Wichita. He had been chasing the same pattern across 4 states without a face to hang on it. He laid it out for them in a conference room at the sheriff's office with the blinds down. "Your nephew is not running this. He took the money. He moved the money. There's a difference, and the difference is going to matter to you in about 10 minutes. Blaisdell put a printout on the table. "Brody Rasmussen owes a substantial amount to people who do not send letters. He borrowed it 18 months ago. He has not made a payment in cash since March. He has been making payments in work. Work. Voices. Names. Access. He is a supplier. Blaisdell tapped the sheet. And about 11 weeks ago, the arrangement changed. They stopped taking whoever he could find and started requiring a specific kind of target. Which kind? Family. The agent said it without any weight on it, which somehow made it worse. Because families don't file federal complaints against each other. They yell at Thanksgiving and they eat the loss. Whoever's running this figured that out a long time ago and built it into the terms. Emmett sat with his hands on the table. So he had to hand somebody over. And he picked me. He picked the account with the most in it that he had the most access to. I'm not going to dress that up for you. Detective Duffy said something then that Emmett did not answer for a full 10 seconds. Mr. Pruitt, when's the last time you called that kid? Before all this. Just called him. He thought about it. He thought about it honestly, which was a thing he had a habit of doing and which had never once cost him this much. Brody had come to them at 9 years old with a garbage bag of clothes and a broken wrist that nobody had explained. He had slept 4 years in the room behind the kitchen. Noreen had let out the cuffs of his jeans twice a year. He had learned to ride a bicycle in that driveway. And at 13, his father came back through town with a truck and a girlfriend and a story. Brody went. Emmett let him go because the man was his father and because there was no paperwork in the world that said otherwise. 11 years, Emmett said. I've seen him at every funeral in this county for 11 years. I've never once picked up the phone and called him about nothing. That's not what put a gun in his hand. No, ma'am, but he had to get the gun from somewhere. Blaisdell wanted to move on warrants. Duffy wanted more. What neither of them had was the thing that would put it beyond argument. Everything they had was about a bell and a bank and a boy who was not in the room. Any competent defense attorney was going to stand up and say the same sentence. 39,000 people had that video, and the county was accusing a young man of a crime because his uncle needed somebody to blame. Emmett went home and sat in his own kitchen and looked at the shelf. 211 jars in 5 rows. Water from every hole he had ever finished, each one with a family name and a date on a strip of tape. Whitlow, Bramhall, Fanning, Rasmussen. From the summer his sister was still alive. He had started doing it because his father had done it. He kept doing it for a reason he had never said out loud to anybody. The ground will tell you anything. The jar will only tell you one thing. You don't trust the sound, he said to an empty room. You trust the sample. And then he stopped with his hand halfway to the shelf because he had just understood where every raw file in Bickham County had been sitting for 6 years. Brody Rasmussen had set up the family phone plan. He had set up the storage that came with it. He had set it up in the spring after Noreen died, sitting at that same table, being helpful. Emmett could not stand to look at a screen that year. Somebody had to move all the pictures off her phone before the account closed. 6 years of automatic monthly payments. 6 years of a line item on a bank statement that Emmett had never once opened because it was $11 and because it was for his wife's photographs. The account was in Emmett Pruitt's name. It always had been. Brody had never moved a single file off of it. Not the raw graduation footage, not the voices of Fenmore interviews, not the folder of trimmed audio sorted by name with a column marking which ones came out clean. He had run the whole thing out of a room in his uncle's house. It was exactly the way he had done everything else in his life, and he had never noticed he was doing it. It took the lawyers 2 days to get the files out with a warrant nobody could argue with. Emmett was the subscriber of record, and had been since the spring after the funeral. Blaisdell called it the cleanest evidentiary pull of his career. Duffy called it something less printable, and it still was not enough, and Emmett knew it before either of them said it. Rhea, you have the files, he said. You've got a folder of my son's voice cut into pieces on a service I pay for. A jury's going to want to know why that proves it wasn't my son on the phone. Blaisdell rubbed his eyes. Because the alternative is that a 16-year-old boy stole $86,000 from his own father and then framed his cousin for it. And a good lawyer will say exactly that in front of my kid. Duffy looked at him. What do you want, Mr. Pruitt? I want the county to hear the two of them next to each other. They tried it every way it could be tried, and none of the ways worked. And this is the part that took Emmett 3 days to accept. He wanted a recording of Silas that would stand against the recording that had emptied his account. Loretta Bramhall had 6 years of them. But every clean recording of that boy in the world was exactly the raw material the machine had been built out of, and every recording where he stumbled would be answered with the same shrug. He was nervous that day. He is not nervous today. People have good days. There was one thing on this earth that a copy could not do, and a boy could. Emmett found his son on the tailgate behind the shop on a Wednesday evening with a math book he was not reading. I have to ask you for something, and I want you to be able to say no. Okay. They can prove the money moved. They can prove where the sound came from. They can't prove it wasn't you, because everything I've got is a recording, and a recording is the exact thing this man is good at faking. So somebody has to stand up in front of this county and be the real one, in a room, where people can see it happen. Silas Pruitt did not answer for a long time. He picked at the tailgate paint. You want me to talk? I want you to have the choice. That's different, and I need you to hear that it's different. Dad, I don't talk. That's the whole thing about me. That's the one fact everybody in this town has about me. I know. They'll put it on the internet. They will. They already did once. That's how we got here. Emmett did not have anything to say to that, and he had the sense to not go looking for something. Silas got down off at the tailgate and stood with his back to his father. He did the thing he had done since he was 6. He ran the sentence in his head all the way through before he risked any of it out loud. When you go out on a job, when you don't know what's under it, yeah, you still put the hole down. Every time. Why? So, because the only way anybody ever finds out what's down there is if somebody goes and gets a jar of it. The boy stood there a while. Okay, he said, but I want her there. Loretta Bramhall worked with him for 9 days in the storage room off the gymnasium. She did not teach him to speak fluently because that is not a thing that can be taught in 9 days, and because it was not the point. She taught him something else. She taught him how to stand inside a block and stay there and not run. She told him more than once in a flat voice with no comfort in it at all that the block was not the enemy. Well, they're going to hear you stop, she said. Let them. The stop is the evidence. The plan came together in a kitchen with 4 people at the table, and it was Emmett's, and it was ugly, and it worked on exactly one principle. Brody Rasmussen could not stay off camera. He had run that page for 6 years. He had filmed every graduation and every funeral procession and every ribbon cutting in Bickham County. He had built himself, one post at a time, into the young man who tells this county what is happening to it. And a county page with a fraud problem needed a live broadcast to warn people, and there was only one person who could host it. Emmett called him. First time in 11 years he ever called that boy about anything. Brody, it's your uncle. Hey, is everything all right? You said you wanted to write it up for the page. I did. I've been meaning to. I just didn't want to put you out there before you were ready. I want to do better than write it up. 9 families in this county got hit. Perce Whitlow got hit. These are old people who are sitting there thinking they're stupid and it's their fault. That's exactly it. That's exactly what I've been saying. So put it live, you and me. Thursday night, the fire hall, sit us down and let me tell them what happened to me and how they can protect themselves. You run the camera. It's your page. There was a pause on the line. Inside that pause, a young man in a rented room did the arithmetic that people like him always do. Not is this safe, but how does this look? And he came out where people like him always come out. Uncle Emmett, Brody said, and his voice had gone warm and thick. That's the best thing I've heard in a month. That's what the page is for. Emmett hung up and set the phone down on the kitchen table and looked at his hand until it stopped. The Fenmore Springs Fire Hall held about 200 folding chairs. On Thursday night, there were closer to 300 people in it, standing along the walls under the ladder truck. Word had gone around the way word goes around in a county that size. Brody had set up 2 cameras and a light on a stand and a table with a blue cloth on it. He wore a collared shirt. He had made a title card. When the stream went live, the number in the corner climbed past 400 and then past 1,000. By the time he finished his introduction, it was north of 4,000. There are fewer than 8,000 adults in that county, which meant a great many people in 3 states were watching Bickham County talk to itself. Folks, most of you know me. I want to thank you for being here. What's been happening in this county the last few months is something I take personally. He was good at it. That is a thing that has to be said plainly. He talked about his grandmother. He talked about how these people target the ones who trust the most. He read out the number of the sheriff's non-emergency line twice and told everybody to write it down. Then he turned to the man beside him. Uncle Emmett here is going to tell you what happened to his family. And I'll be honest with all of you, this one's been hard for me. Emmett Pruitt sat with his hands flat on the blue cloth and told it in order and did not raise his voice once. The call at 1:52, the 11 minutes, the split door frame, the boy asleep with one earbud in, the 3 transfers, $86,000, which was his wife's insurance and his son's college and the money he ran his trucks on. The room made the sound a room makes. And the bank told me it was authorized, and they were telling me the truth. That's the part I want the older folks in here to hear. If it happens to you, they're going to say that word to you too, and you are going to think it means you did something wrong. Uncle Emmett, tell them how they got his voice. They got it off this county's own page. Brody did not move. He had known that was coming, and he had decided how to take it. "That's right," he said to the camera, gravely. "The video I put up in May. I have thought about that every single day. I put that boy's voice on the internet, and somebody in some other country used it, and I am going to carry that." It was honestly a beautiful move. Half the room went soft toward him. "Nobody blames you, son," an old man called out. "I blame me," Brody said. And then he turned his chair a little and looked at his uncle with an enormous amount of tenderness and put the knife in. "Uncle Emmett, can I say something that's hard? Everybody here knows what you've been through. You lost Noreen. You lost $86,000. You've been going around this county for 3 weeks asking people questions. I know some folks have been talking. I just want to say in front of everybody that I understand it. When something like this happens, a person needs somebody to be at fault. That's human. And I'd rather you point at me than carry it alone." The room went quiet in a different way. There were people in that hall who shifted in their chairs and looked at the floor. They had heard some of the talk. A grieving man with a theory is a thing every small town has seen before. Emmett let it sit for a second. "You film a lot of things, Brody." "I do." "You filmed Perce Whitlow for 40 minutes at his kitchen table." "That's the History Project." "You filmed Ida Whitlow's funeral." "You filmed my son's graduation." Since May, you have run 11 of those interviews, and 9 of those 11 people have had money taken out of their accounts by somebody talking in their own voice. Uncle Emmett, those are the people I sit down with because those are the people this county is losing. That's the whole point of it. "It is," Emmett said. "That's exactly the point of it." He reached under the table and set a phone on the blue cloth. Detective Marlene Duffy stood up from the 3rd row, where she had been sitting in a windbreaker. It was the first time all night that Brody Rasmussen's face did anything he did not choose. "I want to play 2 things for the county, and then I'm done talking." He played 11 seconds of the credit union authorization audio. A boy's voice, clean and even. Then he played 11 seconds of the video that 39,000 people had watched. "Now I'm a well driller. I've got no education past this town's high school. But when the ground lies to you for a living, you learn one rule, and I've said it to my son since he was little. You don't trust the sound, you trust the sample." He played the first clip again. This time, Loretta Bramhall spoke. She was standing at the end of the front row in a cardigan with a school badge on a lanyard, and she said one word into the room. "Bell." 300 people heard it. "That's the period bell in that gym," Emmett said. "It's in the audio that took my money. It is not in the video on the page because the video on the page was trimmed at the front. 8 seconds. Whoever built that voice did not build it out of the copy that everybody in this county saw. They built it out of the file it was cut from." He looked at his nephew. "There's one of those. It's been sitting for 6 years in a storage account. The account's in my name. I've been paying $11 a month for it since the spring your aunt died. You set it up for me at my kitchen table, and you never moved one single thing off of it." Brody Rasmussen's hand went to the laptop. That was all. It was not a lunge and it was not dramatic. It was one hand sliding 4 inches toward a trackpad in front of 300 people and 4,000 more to end the broadcast. For 6 years, he had controlled what Bickham County was allowed to see. When it turned on him, he reached for the only thing he had ever really owned, and he did it on camera. Blaisdell got to the laptop first. "Leave it running," he said. And in the doorway at the back of the fire hall under the exit sign, Silas Pruitt started walking up the center aisle. Loretta Bramhall's hand was not quite touching his shoulder. He got to the table. He turned around. He looked at 300 people in a red light, and he opened his mouth, and nothing came out. 3 seconds. The room did not move. 5 seconds. Somebody's chair creaked and stopped. 9 seconds. That is a very long time to watch a boy stand in front of a county and fail to make a sound. Nobody laughed. Nobody looked away. Later, a great many people in Bickham County would say that was the moment they understood what had actually been stolen. Then it released. D-Dad. He got a hand on the table. That's what it costs me." He turned to the camera his cousin had set up. "Every time." They took Brody Rasmussen out the side door of the fire hall in handcuffs at 20 past 8 with the stream still running. The last thing 4,000 people saw on the Fenmore Now page was the back of the young man who had run it. He went through a fire door held open by a sheriff's deputy. The page came down 2 days later without an announcement. Nobody in the county asked who took it down. The federal indictment ran to 19 counts. Wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, conspiracy. The 9 Bickham County cases were pulled together with cases in 3 other states. The folder off Emmett Pruitt's storage account became the spine of all of it. It was sorted by name, with a column marking the clean ones. 2 of the people it led to were arrested in Missouri in October. One of them was the man Brody had been paying with other people's voices for 18 months. Meridian Plains Credit Union reversed all 3 transfers in November, once the word on the file changed from authorized to fraudulent. Del Fanning drove out to the shop with the paperwork herself instead of mailing it, and she sat in the truck a minute before she came in. Perce Whitlow got his $14,000 back in December. He came by the shop with a pie he had not made and did not know how to hand over. He stood in Emmett's kitchen looking at the shelf of jars for a while. He found the one with his own name on it from 19 years ago. Then he had to go out to the porch. Loretta Bramhall's name went on the building directory at Fenmore Springs High School in the spring. The district moved her out of the storage room into an actual office with a window. She kept the shelf of gray cases. She said she would keep it until they made her stop. Emmett wrote his nephew twice. He did not get an answer, and he kept writing anyway. The second letter was shorter than the first. It said only that he should have called years ago about nothing, and that he was sorry it took a crime to teach him one thing. A boy who lives in your house for 4 years does not stop being yours when somebody comes and gets him. Silas Pruitt still stutters. He will stutter the rest of his life. In April, he stood up in a school board meeting in Otway County. He talked for 6 minutes about what a recording can and cannot do. It took him closer to 9 because of the stops. The room waited every time. A machine can borrow how a boy says a word. It can never borrow what it cost him to say it. In May, a year to the week after the graduation video, they finished a hole out past the springs on ground 3 men had told the owner was dry. Silas was on the rig with him now on Saturdays. They ran the string down past 380 feet. The sound coming back up the pipe was the sound Emmett had been arguing with his whole working life. The one that could be water and could be nothing. His son looked over at him. Sounds like water. It always sounds like water. They brought a jar up. Emmett held it against the sky and it was clear all the way through. He took the grease pencil out of his shirt pocket and wrote the family's name and the date on a strip of tape. Then he handed it to the boy to carry. A dry hole and a good well sound almost the same on the way down. You only find out by what comes back up. Here is what that county learned, and it cost them plenty to learn it. Anybody can take your voice now. Your face, your name, the sound of your child saying the one word that gets you out of a chair at 2 in the morning. All of that is loose in the world and it is not coming back. But nobody can take the price you paid to become who you are. Nobody can borrow 9 seconds of silence in a room full of people. Nobody can fake the years. So do one small thing tonight. Pick a question with the people you love. Something only the 2 of you would know the answer to. Then agree that no voice on any phone gets past it ever. And then look around your own table. Notice who is always the first one there when something goes wrong for you. Most of the time, that is the person who loves you most. And once in a great while, it is the person who wanted to be standing in the room when you found out. If this one got to you, send it to somebody who needs it before somebody calls them.